Software begins as boxes and arrows on a whiteboard. NoFlo keeps it that way. This is the source code to Jekyll, an app loved by hackers. This is Jekyll rebuilt on NoFlo. This is the future. NoFlo makes programmers happy. They can focus on creating small, reusable components, so no more spaghetti code, no more refactoring hundreds of text files. Anyone can now wire together apps for the web, for Node.js, and if we hit our stretch goals, even for Android and iOS. Every member of your team can now understand what is going on and collaborate to get it done. NoFlo works. We have hundreds of open source components. Dozens of startups and researchers rely on it. We have a working prototype of a hot new UI. And with your support, we can invest the needed blood and sweat to make it available on the cloud. Text-based programming was invented in the 50s, but it took decades for software development to move away from punch cards. Flow-based programming was invented in the 70s at IBM by Paul Morrison. Decades later, it's time for the next leap.
If you think about how software is usually designed, we all start at the whiteboard. We draw these boxes, we connect them with arrows, and then we sit down and write code. And that's where the problem actually is, because through the rewrites, through the refactorings, the whiteboard doesn't hold true anymore. Instead, you have to go through all these hundreds of text files to understand how the software works. With NoFlo, that's not the case, because the graph is actually the live logic of the software.
We're working with this very high-tech, futuristic software, and nothing very new has shown up in the last, 50 years. No matter what the design was, you eventually had to turn it into lines of text.
The world of software has grown stagnant. The most productive programmers are still using these terminal-based text editors written 30 years ago. How can we move the state-of-the-art forward from there?
Trying to understand software, line by line, it's like you're lost. In a foreign subway system, you don't know where you're at. You don't know how the destinations are connected, and if you don't speak code, you don't even know what destinations there are. NoFlo gives you that map, and this is a big deal because whole industries, whole teams are lost in code.
2 months going through what they called spaghetti code, and they said essentially it was garbage. They could do nothing with it. What was missing was the ability to really sort of map out exactly where we needed to go in terms of the different components that needed to be developed for the system. From what you guys have in NoFlo, that would have been huge.
There's this whole myth that some genius programmer locked away in the basement is going to solve all your problems. That's just not reality. Software is built by people and multiple people. We need to understand and have a visceral sense of what's going on so we can intuit a real solution.
The London Underground map. Taking that subway concept, we started to develop how, instead of station stops, instead of railways implementing nodes, components, edges, we take that metaphor and put that into the interface for NoFlo. People can really understand the amount of information that's coming through.
It's a paradigm shift. It's a different way of looking at programming. And I always say once you've made that paradigm shift, you can't go back.
This paradigm shift, it's already happened in industries outside of app development. Look at Hollywood, games and artificial intelligence. Anytime humans are asked to control hardcore software systems, they don't just turn to code, they visually map things out so they can harness complexity. That's what we're building.
I created Mimu, the flow-based programming environment for the browser, giving kids the ability to have a system that requires no installation. They can just go to the website and start hacking on it. I joined the team to work on the UI layer, which is a separate open source project that can be applied to other kinds of flow-based 3D and image filters and audio filters and audio synthesis. So much of the human brain is dedicated to visual processing and spatial awareness. I think if we can make our coding metaphor take advantage of that and match that, then we're going to be able to manage complexity a lot better, but also kind of opening the door for other people and people that think differently, people that can't wrap their brains around text-based coding, giving them a different metaphor to try. I think it'll be really interesting to see what kind of patterns emerge in this kind of coding.
The NoFlo engine works. It's still very much a coder's game.
but for JavaScript development, it works well for both browsers and Node.js. If we hit the stretch goals of this campaign, we'll be able to bring it also for native Android and iOS development. We still have some quite hardcore problems to solve. Real-time collaboration, touch friendliness, auto layout of the graphs. But with your support, we'll be able to dedicate the time and resources needed to bring this environment up and provide it through the cloud. We'll be giving our supporters a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get the NoFlo UI in the cloud at a great price, and at the same time to change the world of programming. Thanks for your support.